Desmond Doss grew up in a house held together by his mother's prayers and his father's silences. Tom Doss came back from World War I breathing but not whole. The war had taken something from him that no battlefield medal could return, and what was left behind came out in rage, in whiskey, in the kind of nights that make boys grow up too fast. But Bertha was there. She'd pull Desmond and Hal close and remind them, "This is not your fault." During the day, the brothers were just kids running through the woods, scrapping in the dirt, living that beautiful, chaotic freedom only children know. Tom actually encouraged the fighting. His rule: only the winner gets punished. So, neither boy ever did. Then, one afternoon, everything shifted. A single moment, a brick, a flash of rage, his brother's face, and Desmond froze. Hal was okay. But Desmond wasn't, because he had felt something in himself that terrified him. His mother's words rang louder than ever: "Life is sacred." He never forgot it. 15 years later, Desmond is a young man working near his church when a car accident stops traffic and time itself. He doesn't hesitate. He runs in, strips off his belt, and fashions a tourniquet before the doctors even arrive. When they do, they tell him he may have just saved that man's life. And standing there, hands still trembling, Desmond Doss finally understood exactly who he was meant to be. At the hospital, he meets Nurse Dorothy, who makes his heart race. He even donates blood, just to chat with her. The next day, he asks her out, and their first movie date goes surprisingly well, despite a clumsy kiss attempt. As time passes, Desmond and Dorothy build a healthy, loving relationship, thriving together. Desmond eagerly dives into his medical studies, fueled by the books his family gifts him. During a family dinner, Hal reveals his decision to enlist in World War II, following in his father Tom's footsteps. Understanding that his family may not support his choice, he decides to keep it to himself until after he's committed. Bertha, his mother, scolds him for choosing a path that goes against her beliefs about taking lives. Tom, visibly upset, tears up at the sight of his son in uniform, triggering painful memories of his own past. Seeing his brother's turmoil, Desmond feels compelled to enlist as well. He shares his desire to become a medic with Dorothy, hoping to ease her worries. In a heartfelt moment, he asks her to marry him, and she joyfully accepts. Before he leaves for Fort Jackson, Dorothy gifts him a Bible with a picture of her tucked inside, encouraging him to keep it close to his heart. Upon arriving at the fort, Desmond meets his fellow recruits, including Private Smitty, who playfully intimidates him with a knife. Sergeant Howell enters unexpectedly, startling the privates with his commanding presence. He fits the stereotype of a tough sergeant, yelling and criticizing everyone's appearance. Desmond finds humor in Howell's antics, even as he challenges him. The first training exercise is an obstacle course where Desmond excels thanks to his upbringing in the mountains. However, rifle training poses a significant challenge. He refuses to pick up a gun. Howell drags him to Captain Glover's office to explain. Desmond articulates his stance as a conscientious objector, emphasizing that his faith prohibits him from handling weapons, especially on Saturdays, his Sabbath. Glover dismisses his beliefs as a joke, asserting that he can't trust someone who won't follow orders in battle. He suggests a Section 8 psychiatric discharge instead. Back in training, Howell publicly ridicules Desmond for being an objector, claiming he's unreliable in combat. Later that night, Smitty sneaks up on Desmond and grabs his Bible, trying to provoke a fight. Desmond, however, remains calm and simply asks for his Bible back. The next day brings Desmond's psychiatric evaluation. When asked if he hears voices, he confidently asserts that he's just a strong believer, not crazy. The doctor informs Captain Glover that Desmond is mentally fit and cannot be discharged. This means he can continue his training as a combat medic, provided he performs well in other areas. Frustrated, Glover orders Howell to keep Desmond in the barracks, subjecting him to grueling chores like cleaning toilets, while Howell continues to belittle him in front of the other recruits. Desmond faces a tough weekend, forced to work while others enjoy their time off. At night, he suffers brutal beatings from the privates, who blame him for their troubles. When Howell sees Desmond's battered face during lineup, he urges him to quit for his own safety. But Desmond stands firm, refusing to leave or name his attackers. After a long day of training, everyone else heads home, but Desmond gets arrested for insubordination, leaving Dorothy anxious at the altar, sure something is wrong. In his cell, Desmond feels overwhelmed but puts on a brave face when Glover visits, urging him to plead guilty to avoid charges. Desmond once again declines. Dorothy learns of Desmond's situation and visits him, encouraging him to prioritize his safety and pass the rifle training, which doesn't require killing. Sticking to his beliefs, Desmond worries Dorothy, prompting her to call Tom and Bertha for support. The next day, Tom arrives at the fort in full uniform, medals shining, demanding to speak with the general. During court, Desmond pleads not guilty, but just as the verdict nears, Tom bursts in with a letter from the general. It asserts that the right to be a conscientious objector is protected by the U.S. Constitution, leading to the dismissal of the case. Desmond can finally train as a combat medic, and he feels a wave of relief. He and Dorothy marry as planned. Time passes, and the 77th Unit heads to Okinawa, Japan. The harsh realities of war hit them hard as they witness soldiers carrying lifeless bodies. The unit settles into the barracks, joined by the remaining soldiers from the 96th Unit. Desmond meets the area's other two medics, and the 96th soldiers share stories about Hacksaw Ridge. Despite multiple attempts to climb it, the Americans face relentless attacks from the Japanese army, who target the wounded. To protect himself, Desmond is advised to remove the red cross from his sleeve. "Here, I got you a new helmet," someone says, ready to support him. A few days later, the reinforced unit arrives at Hacksaw Ridge. Reclaiming this ridge is crucial. It opens the path to retaking Okinawa and ultimately Japan. The battle kicks off with the U.S. Navy launching missiles at the Japanese army. Amid the chaos of explosions and smoke, Desmond's unit climbs the ridge, ready to fight. The intensity of battle quickly escalates, leading to significant bloodshed on both sides. Yet, Desmond remains resolute, carrying his wounded comrades down the ridge. He faces near-death encounters with Japanese soldiers, but Smitty always has his back. As night falls, Desmond's unit decides to dig in and camp at their newly secured position, determined to reclaim more of the ridge at dawn. Desmond expresses his desire to search for any remaining survivors, but Howell warns that it's too dangerous to venture out. Smitty steps up, volunteering to cover for Desmond, and Howell agrees. Together, they search for wounded soldiers, and during a break in a hole, Smitty shows respect for Desmond's bravery, and they share lighthearted banter, feeling like lifelong friends. Desmond drifts off to sleep but is jolted awake by a vivid nightmare of enemy ambushes. He shares his dream with Smitty, joking about a man who doesn't even use a gun in his nightmares. Desmond explains his deep-seated opposition to weapons, stemming from his abandonment as a baby. Morning brings more chaos as the Japanese army launches a counterattack, ambushing the Americans. Howell orders a retreat, but tragedy strikes when Smitty dies before Desmond can move him to safety. While the rest of the American soldiers scramble down the ridge, Desmond stays behind, hearing the cries of his comrades. He realizes it is his calling to help them. He quickly begins dragging the injured to safety, using ropes to lower them down. Meanwhile, Glover, back at camp, calls off artillery fire to save more lives, leaving Desmond, Howell and the remaining unit vulnerable. Yet Desmond remains undeterred, even as enemy soldiers draw closer. He notices an injured soldier and buries him under dirt, using a dead body as cover to avoid detection. This clever tactic allows him to save the soldier. After sending him down the ridge, Desmond returns to the battlefield, only to be spotted by the enemy. He runs into a tunnel and discovers the grim sight of a soldier who took his own life. Realizing he's in a Japanese tunnel, he feels anxious as enemy soldiers pass through. He skillfully avoids them but then unexpectedly encounters a wounded enemy soldier. Sticking to his medical principles, he administers morphine and a bandage, despite the soldier being part of the enemy. When it's safe to leave the tunnel, night falls again, but Desmond presses on, determined to evacuate more injured soldiers, even as his own hands bleed from the effort. The next morning, Glover wonders how all the wounded soldiers ended up in the medic bays, with one rescued man revealing that the guy nobody believed in had been saving them all. Desmond finds Howell, injured alongside another soldier. After carrying his comrade to safety, he rushes back for Howell but is spotted by an enemy sniper. In a bold move, Desmond runs to draw fire, revealing the sniper's position. Howell seizes the opportunity to shoot the enemy, allowing Desmond to drag Howell to safety. After sending Howell down the ridge, Desmond jumps after him, having saved as many soldiers as he could. The Japanese soldiers peek over the ridge but are swiftly dealt with by Glover and the remaining unit below. Desmond is hailed by his comrades, receiving the highest praise for his bravery. He heads to the medic tents, where he learns about the fate of another medic. Later, Glover approaches him, apologizing for everything and acknowledging that Desmond has done the most for his country. Glover mentions they'll return to the ridge the following day, a Saturday, and encourages Desmond to join, but understands if he chooses to observe his Sabbath. Desmond wants to go, and we see the rest of the unit waiting for him to finish his prayer before they head back up to finish off the Japanese army. As they prepare, they take the enemy by surprise, utilizing the knowledge of the tunnels that Desmond provided, gaining the upper hand in the battle. Desmond emerges from the tunnel, white flag raised, but the surrender is a lie. He closes the distance, and before the soldiers can react, grenades are already leaving his hand. The Japanese forces crumble under sudden, devastating fire. But war never lets a hero walk away clean. A grenade catches Desmond mid-deflection, and he goes down hard. His fellow privates don't hesitate. They haul him onto a stretcher and push toward the ridge's edge, pausing just long enough to press his fallen Bible back into his hands. And when the smoke finally settles, Hacksaw Ridge belongs to America. But the film only tells part of the story. The real Desmond Doss carried 75 wounded men to safety on that ridge, alone, under fire, with nothing but his faith and his hands. He became the first conscientious objector in American history to receive the Medal of Honor, the nation's highest recognition of battlefield bravery. Off the battlefield, he and Dorothy built a quiet, devoted life together until her passing in 1991. Desmond never wavered. He never took credit. He always said it was God, not him. Desmond Doss left this world in March 2006 at 87 years old and left behind something no bullet could ever touch, a legacy of unshakable courage and faith. If you enjoyed this breakdown, smash that like button and share it with a friend. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a recap.